Hello, everybody. This is Viewpoint Libertarian. Normally, I'm in the business of reading articles written by other people and posting them as videos on YouTube. But today I'm going to do something a little different. I came across a web page that is supposed to be a critique against libertarianism, and I felt like addressing some of the criticisms that were put forward. Here's the link, and the page is by somebody called Mike Cuban. Now, there are many arguments on the page that I just didn't understand, so I can't address them, and I can't address them all because there's not enough time. But here is one example of a critique that I did not get. If anybody watching knows what its purpose is, please write a comment so we can get to the bottom of the issue. And he is presenting these sentences as something libertarians would say. They are supposed to be satirical. Private ownership is the cure for all problems, despite the historical record of privately owned states such as Nazi Germany, Tsarist and Stalinist Russia, and Maoist China. I don't know what his point is here. I don't understand why he says Nazi Germany, Tsarist and Stalinist Russia, and Maoist China are examples of privately owned states. These are examples of statist abuses, which are arguments for libertarianism, because libertarianism seeks to limit government so they can't do this kind of thing. Again, please help me out here if you can, and write a comment if you understand what point he's trying to make. Now to the real issues. Here's the first one. Only government is force, no matter how many Indians were killed by settlers to acquire their property, no matter how many blacks were enslaved and sold by private companies, no matter how many heads of union members are broken by private police. No libertarian says that only government is force, and if he did, he would be a moron. People aggress against each other all the time outside of government. Robbery happens, murder happens, and it's wrong. Stealing Indians' land and killing them is wrong. Slavery is abominable. Yes, private people did these things. But it is important to note that governments did it on an even greater scale. 2. Libertarians invented outrage over government waste, bureaucracy, injustice, etc. Nobody else thinks they are bad, knows they exist, or works to stop them. I've never heard a libertarian say this. It's obvious that people talk about them all the time. President Obama campaigned on going line by line through the budget to eliminate wasteful programs. The libertarian point is that everybody talks about government waste, but nobody ever actually does anything about it. President Obama is a case in point. And so was George W. Bush, for that matter, in recent history. And here's an interesting sidebar. Medicare loses more than $60 billion in waste and fraud every year. 60 billion. Google it. Number 3. Taxation is theft because we have a right to squat in the US and benefit from defense, infrastructure, police, courts, etc. without obligation. Again, this is supposed to be a libertarian saying this. It's not that libertarians want to receive things from government without paying taxes. We don't want to receive things from government, period. Many libertarians do want to receive police, courts, and national defense, for which they say taxation is justified. But many libertarians don't want to receive inefficient government roads. It's like Walmart mailing you a product that you don't want from them or want to buy from somebody else, and then Walmart comes to your house and jails you if you don't pay them. We would rather receive private roads at a cheaper cost and better service from private providers. Now, if you're not a libertarian, even if you are a libertarian, private roads probably sound crazy. I wasn't born a libertarian. I didn't used to think that roads could be provided privately. It takes a lot of reading and a lot of getting used to many hardcore libertarian ideas. If you're interested in crazy stuff like private roads, police courts, etc., read For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard. It is awesome. And here are a few other links about private roads. Next one. The great Zen riddle of libertarianism. Minimal government is necessary and unnecessary. The answer is only to be found by individuals. Well, anarcho-libertarians don't have this problem, and they ask libertarians who want government, police, courts, and national defense the same question. It is a valid question. But it's also a valid question the opposite way. How much government is too little? If healthcare and education should be provided by the government, what about food? Food stamps aren't enough. There are many poor people in the US who still go hungry. What about housing? Many people have poor housing in the US. Why shouldn't government nationalize all industries? Well, if you did that, you would have socialism, which has failed on every large-scale attempt in history. I don't see how you can get around that. If this point is a valid critique against libertarians, its opposite is a valid critique against everyone else. Moving on. Private education works. Public education doesn't. The publicly educated masses that have grown the modern economies of the past 150 years are an illusion. Aside from some satisfactory results at hugely inflated costs, public education is having extremely poor results in some areas and is failing many, many students. Nearly a third of students in the US don't graduate high school, and many that do can't read, write, or do math above a very low level. And spending on government education has increased by 133% since the 1970s, and that is just at the federal level, without any positive results. I know it sounds strange, but there are libertarians, myself included, who support absolutely no government money going to education, not even vouchers, which many libertarians support. Education is too important to have the government mismanage it. Education would be so much cheaper, incredibly innovative, dynamic, and student oriented without the state wrecking it. And if all schools were, quote, private, there wouldn't be just religious schools. I'm an atheist, if that means anything. Interesting factoid, the federal U.S. Department of Education wasn't created until 1979 and began operating in 1980. Here's a good link on a libertarian perspective of education. Please make sure you watch the whole video and not just the first minute. The next one is central planning cannot work, which is why all businesses internally are run like little markets with no centralized leadership. This critique is trying to say that libertarians don't realize that businesses have management level or planning levels within their structure. But here's the deal. Businesses operate according to the price system. Of course, businesses have leadership at some level that direct what goes on. It could be stratified in many different levels. There are lots of different business models. Here's the deal. Businesses operate according to the price system and the profit and loss system. If a business is making profits, that means consumers want what the business is producing, so the business will produce more, and other businesses will be attracted by the profits to enter the market to produce and please the consumers and thereby drive down profits. Losses tell businesses they are inefficient or are not treating their customers well. If a business has too many losses, it will go bankrupt, and a more efficient company that treats its customers better will take over the assets of the poorly managed business and therefore please the consumers better. Government does not operate like this. It does not have any feedback from its customers, aside from elections in certain cases, but does that ever change anything? A government agency can't go bankrupt if it abuses its customers like a business can. Government monopolies are terrible. Additionally, what's just as bad, I should note, is corporatism, where governments shield abusive corporations and businesses from bankruptcy through bailouts and giving them subsidies and special tax breaks, etc. But that's a statist problem, which is what libertarians stress. Number 7. Paternalism is the worst thing that can be inflicted upon people, as everyone knows that fathers are the most hated and reviled figures in the world. There is a difference between a parent deciding what's best for their 5-year-old child and the government telling an adult not to drink, for example. Libertarians don't like paternalist governmental actions like prohibition because it interferes with adults' decisions and because it has other terrible consequences. We repealed alcohol prohibition from the 20s, and the drug war today is absolutely awful. Over 30,000 Mexicans have died since 2006 because of illegal drugs, which is the result of state paternalism. Number 8. The FDA is solely responsible for any death or sickness where it might have prevented treatment by the latest unproven fad. It's not that the FDA doesn't approve crazy snake oil drugs, like the critique says. It's that the FDA has delayed so many good drugs that cause invisible victims. Misoprostol, streptokinase, and alpranolol, just a few examples, would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives if the FDA hadn't delayed them for, in at least one case, 10 years. Another, perhaps seemingly crazy idea to you if you've never heard it before, that turns out to be very substantive if you read into it, phase out the FDA. What would happen if we didn't have an FDA? Well, private companies would approve and certify drugs because everybody, me included, would want to buy drugs that were tested to be safe. Real-life examples today of companies of safety and quality include Underwriters Laboratories, Consumer Reports, and the Good Housekeeping Seal. Many more similar companies would enter the market in the absence of the blundering FDA. Rating companies would seek to build a reputation of safety and honesty while maximizing speed and efficiency in order to attract customers. Businesses would want their products rated highly by these agencies so that they could sell them more easily because consumers are interested in safe and quality products, especially with pharmaceutical drugs. A dishonest, unsafe company would have its reputation destroyed, lose its patrons, face lawsuits, and go bankrupt, so they could not dominate the market. Furthermore, the FDA makes the cost of bringing a drug to market close to $1 billion. That's why drugs are so expensive in this country. That's a big reason why people can't afford proper health care. Monopolies are always bad, especially government ones like the FDA. Moving on. Number 9. If you don't have a gun, you are not a libertarian. If you do have a gun, why don't you have even more powerful armament? I don't own a gun, and I have no plans to get one, and yet I am still a libertarian, and you can be a libertarian if you don't own a gun, like me. Next one. Yes, the symbol of the Libertarian Party is a big government statue. It's not supposed to be funny or ironic. That is actually a very insightful and witty observation. I never realized it before. It is a big government statue, which is ironic, so props to Mike on that one. I'll give him a point for that. A note about the Libertarian Party. I have voted for Libertarian candidates before, never expecting that they would win. I don't feel any real loyalty or dedication to the party. I've never advocated for it or volunteered for it. Libertarianism isn't about the Libertarian Party. But something to say about the lack of success of the Libertarian Party. It can be applied to any third party in the United States. The current political system in the US is just stacked for the Republican and Democratic parties, which is really bad, in my opinion, because I think there's basically no difference between the two parties. Barack Obama is George W. Bush's third term, which is awful. But again, about the lack of success. In the past, in the 17th and 18th centuries, if you said that constitutional democracy without an autocratic monarchy would be the prevailing political system in the West, people would have thought you were crazy. So we don't know what the future holds. Last one. The most heavily armed libertarian has the biggest dick, and thus the best argument. No joke, he actually wrote this. I have never used or heard anything of this nature by any libertarian, so that's that. Those are all the critiques for this video. They clearly show a misunderstanding of libertarianism, which is so unfortunate, but that's why I made this video. If you're interested in libertarianism, check out things like Reason Magazine, the Cato Institute, and for more extreme things, if you're ready, check out the Molinari Institute and the Mises Institute, and read Murray Rothbard. I like him a lot. If you like to think of yourself as a progressive or leftist kind of person, check out Left Libertarianism. It's pretty awesome. Go to all-left.net. The dash is important. It's really cool. And check out my video called Wild Cards by Roderick Long if you lean left, and even if you don't. I really like Roderick Long. Read some of his stuff. Just Google him. To all my libertarian viewers out there, if you ever discuss things like this with someone, don't ever get mad. Getting mad at people isn't going to help your position. And if I came off as patronizing or arrogant or rude in this video, it was not my intention. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. So long.